Welcome to the Celiac Diaries Podcast. I'm your host, Lucia Cordaro, and this is where we get real about life with celiac disease. Each week, I'll share practical gluten-free tips, wellness hacks, and honest conversations about the emotional side of living with an autoimmune condition. Think of this as your weekly mix of support, relatability, and inspiration to help you not just survive, but thrive with celiac. Before we dive in, just a quick reminder, I'm not a medical professional. Everything I share is based on my own experience living with celiac disease. This podcast is not medical advice, so please always consult your doctor about your own health. Hi guys, I can't believe we're doing this. We are live from a podcast studio in New York City. This is so crazy. I have been wanting to start a podcast for years, but I just never knew what I wanted to actually talk about. And the podcasting space is so saturated. I really wanted to make sure that I was bringing a podcast into this world that would really add value to people's lives. And something just clicked for me recently, and I decided it's time to start a podcast all about celiac disease, and that's what we're doing. So without further ado, let's get into the first episode. So in today's episode, I really just wanted to take the time to introduce myself to you guys. I'm Lucia, hello, and just give you a little bit of background as to why I felt so called to start this podcast and what I really see for it and the vision. To give you guys context, I'll get into a little bit of a background of my celiac disease journey, a little preview of the ups and downs that I've had, because it honestly has kind of been a crazy journey. It's going to be a good time. I'm excited to chat with you guys. So hit that follow button. I will see you guys back here every Wednesday for a new episode of Celiac Diaries. And we're doing it, guys. We're starting it. Let's get into it. I'm obsessed with podcasts. If you know me in real life, I feel like you probably know this. I'm always listening to podcasts. And one thing that I do love about a podcast is a weekly segment. And here at Celiac Diaries, we are going to have 2 weekly segments. So get excited. First up, we have News of the Week. So every week, I'm going to share a celiac or gluten-free update in the news just to keep us all up to date. It could be something fun, maybe something more research-focused. It really just depends what's going on. So we're going to kick things off with our very first News of the Week. So exciting. All right, today's story. Starbucks says it's doubling down on gluten-free food. The CEO says gluten-free menu items are in development. According to Forbes, this comes as the gluten-free food market is booming, with 1 in 10 millennials saying they follow a gluten-free diet. Okay, wow. So this is exciting. I remember back in 2017 when Starbucks had their gluten-free breakfast sandwich on the menu, and I kid you not, I feel like I had that sandwich every single day, especially freshman fall of college. I was obsessed. So major. I hope that is what they mean when they say gluten-free options are going to be coming back to the menu. Although I do have a bone to pick with Starbucks about this, because the egg bites are technically gluten-free if you look at the ingredients list. At least some of them are. And I'm such an egg bites stan. I love the egg bites. I know that might be a hot take, but I haven't been able to eat them for years because Starbucks cannot guarantee that there's no cross-contamination risk. So I personally would be a bit more excited about this announcement if I knew that these products were actually going to be celiac safe. I think this is great for people that have gluten intolerances and don't need to worry about cross-contamination, but I'm a little wary of Starbucks preparation practices, and I just don't know if I'll trust the cross-contamination on these. So along with these gluten-free product updates, I would love to see Starbucks come out with a celiac button available when you're ordering on the mobile app that you could press or mark or even just notate that you have an allergy when you're ordering something. They could guarantee that your menu item will be prepared without cross-contamination, because for celiacs, we honestly really don't need a gluten-free bread option. Really what we need is guarantee that the food that's naturally gluten-free won't be exposed to cross-contamination. That's personally what I am campaigning for at Starbucks, if you're listening to this. So let me know what you think, what your wish list is for Starbucks. I think this is exciting news, but we're going to take this with a grain of salt, because I'm not entirely confident that these new gluten-free menu items at Starbucks will actually be celiac safe. But we shall see. Starbucks, it's your move. All right, now it's time for the next weekly segment. We have our gluten-free favorite of the week. So this is where I'm going to share a product, a restaurant, or a recipe that I've been loving lately, obviously something gluten-free. This week, I think I have to start out with giving a shout out to the best gluten-free bread out there, in my opinion. It's the Carbonut branded bread. They have a gluten-free line. Specifically, I love the seeded flavor. I meant to bring, if you're watching on YouTube, I meant to bring a loaf to show you guys on video, but I'll pop it up onto the screen. Rookie mistake for my first podcast recording. It's taken me years to find this gluten-free bread, but I'm obsessed with it. It's not perfect, but it is the best that I found so far. It tastes good. It toasts super easily. It freezes well. It never falls apart. The nutrients are pretty strong. The ingredients list is relatively clean, especially compared to other gluten-free bread options. And it's high fiber, which I personally like, but definitely look into that on the ingredients list as well. It does have some gums, but comparing the ingredients list of Carbonut bread to other gluten-free breads that I feel like I've been eating for years, it's so much better. There's no added sugars, which I can literally spend an entire episode talking about the gluten-free bread options and how most of them are awful. And it's like, okay, why does bread have 30 grams added sugars and like 100 words in the ingredients list just because it's gluten-free? It's really insane. It can be really hard to find great gluten-free products. And I think, I'm talking a bit too long about this, but I'm clearly very passionate about this subject. So we will save the rest of those thoughts for another episode, but that is my gluten-free fave of the week. I will share it in the show notes if you want to go check it out. All right, guys, with that, I think it's time to get into the meat of the episode. Let's do it. First things first, I just wanted to introduce myself to you guys if you haven't been following me, or if you're not friends or family, which are probably a lot of the people listening to the first episode. But I'm Lucia. I'm 26. I live in New York City. I obviously have celiac disease. I was diagnosed with celiac disease when I was 11. I'm originally from Shreveport, Louisiana, but I lived in Chicago in between Louisiana and New York. I went to Northwestern for college, and I work full-time in advertising, so I'm not a full-time influencer. I have a corporate job, which is super duper fun. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. I post a lot of weekly vlogs on YouTube, so you can really see, honestly, like the past 4 years of my life in chronological order if you really want to, which is a little scary. But anyway, that's a little bit about me. You'll definitely learn a bit more about me, I feel like, throughout each episode as different things come up. But I wanted to share with you guys a bit more about my celiac diagnosis, obviously, since this whole podcast is about celiac disease. I'm definitely going to do an entire episode on this because I think there's so many details to get into, and I feel like everyone's celiac disease diagnosis story is so unique and interesting, and there's so many different parts to it, and like not one story is the same. So I'm definitely going to dedicate an entire episode to that. But first, we'll just do a TLDR for the very first episode. So I was diagnosed with celiac when I was 11 years old. Very young. I feel like at the time I felt so old, but looking back on it, I was quite young at 11. And now I'm 26. So I've had celiac longer than I haven't had celiac, which is a little weird to say, but it's true. Basically, the reason that my parents took me to the doctor is because I had significant stunted growth. I'm still a short gal, guys. I like to say I'm 5'1". We're just gonna go with that. But anyway, my parents started taking me to a specialist to see what was up because I just wasn't really growing. And after a couple of years of testing, they finally figured out that I had celiac disease. And my parents found out about it before me, obviously, and I remember one night we were about to have dinner at home. It was ravioli night, and your girl used to be obsessed with ravioli, so I remember being so excited. And then I remember my parents took me into their room, and they were like, actually, you can't have ravioli tonight. And I was like so confused, and then they gave me this piece of paper that had a list of all of the foods that I couldn't eat, and I just remember not really understanding it. I was like, oh, okay, is this just like for the rest of the week? Like I need to follow this plan? And they were like, no, for the rest of your life. And I was like, okay, cool, which I think when you're that young, you just don't really understand what that means. Like when I was 11, I thought being 22 was so old and I couldn't imagine my life beyond being 22. So I didn't really have a concept of it. And I was just a kid. I felt super invincible and wasn't really focused on, worrying about managing chronic health issues or the implications that could have later on in life. I was just kind of wanting to, go to school and hang out with my friends and do all my fun like sports and activities and theater stuff. So I didn't really do much research on it personally as a kid. My parents really did all of that. I mean, at 11 and in middle school, I wasn't cooking my own meals. So like my mom would manage all of that stuff and everything. So I never really did much research on it when I was first diagnosed. I was just kind of like, okay, like I'll just, eat these different products that my mom makes me that kind of taste a little weird and different, but I also didn't have such a sophisticated palate at 11. So actually like eating different things didn't super bother me. The only time it bothered me was if I was at a birthday party and I couldn't have birthday cake. But really, I wasn't so into it, for lack of a better way to explain it. I remember I was still constantly eating gluten for a while just because of like unintentional cross-contamination, unintentional actually eating gluten. I remember for the longest time I was like having the breaded chicken from Panda Express just because they said it was gluten-free, but it's like it obviously wasn't gluten-free. And also sometimes I would even sneak gluten in a friend's house because I really didn't understand the gravity of what celiac disease was. That was middle school. Fast forward to high school, I feel like I was a little bit better about it. I was finally, making my own lunches, and I would have gluten-free products, but I wasn't super aware of cross-contamination, so I wasn't really conscious of that at all. And then also, just to set the scene, I was living in Louisiana in the 2010s, and now I live in New York in the 2020s, so it's obviously just so much easier to manage with more options and people knowing what it is. Like, none of my friends knew what celiac disease was in Louisiana, and I didn't want to talk about it or tell them that I had it because I just thought it was weird. But now it's like everyone knows what it is, and it's a lot easier to live with celiac disease in the 2020s and in New York City. Yeah, I honestly just I thought it was annoying. I thought it was a burden. I thought it was embarrassing. I also didn't really understand what symptoms I was actually having because I just wasn't in tune with my body at the time. And I thought that the symptoms that I was having, like brain fog, fatigue, anxiety, stomach issues, whatever it was, I just thought that was what normal life was because that's all that I'd ever known. So I wasn't in tune with the fact of oh, maybe I'm still actually having gluten. I didn't think that I needed to do more than I was doing to manage celiac because I didn't understand it. And then flash forward to college, I honestly still didn't even have a great grasp on it then. I think I want to do a whole episode dedicated to managing celiac in college because I think that could be helpful for a lot of you out there. But it really wasn't until COVID that I started, I had more time, so I started to do more research on what celiac disease was. Then after that, when I started living on my own as an adult and having my own apartment and everything, I got more into it, mainly because my first year post-grad, I had the worst celiac symptoms, but at the time I had no idea that that's what was going on because in my mind, I thought that I was effectively managing my celiac disease just because I bought the gluten-free version of bread when I went to the grocery store. I thought that was all there was to it, but there's really so much more that you need to think about and learn about and be aware of in order to effectively manage celiac disease and learn to thrive and be in control of your own health and wellness. And I just didn't realize that. So it really took me a good 11 years after being diagnosed to fully grasp and understand what celiac disease was, what I needed to be doing on a monthly, yearly, even daily basis to manage it, and figure out how to not just survive with celiac disease, but really thrive in my life and just feel in control of my health because it's so important. And I was actually just talking to a coworker about this the other day, who I just found out also has celiac, and she was also diagnosed when she was 11. And she was saying she had the same experience because being diagnosed as a kid, you're not really learning about it for yourself because you're a kid. You're not, managing your life at that point. And she had the same experience of when she went to college and when she started living on her own, that she really had to relearn what celiac disease was and everything she had to do. So I think this is a pretty common experience for people that are diagnosed when they're kids. I just go through this entire story just to share with you guys my background of where I'm coming from with my celiac disease journey. There's so much to learn about managing it. I wish it was as simple as just buying the gluten-free version of all of the products that you like from the grocery store. But there's really so much more to it than that. And oftentimes the gluten-free versions of the products that you like might not actually be gluten-free. We'll have a whole episode on really reading the labels and understanding what to really look for. And also, a lot of gluten-free products out there are just not the healthiest substitutes, which I feel like is also a myth that a lot of people think, like, oh, the gluten-free version of something is automatically going to be healthier. But a lot of times the gluten-free versions of products have like 100 more ingredients than the regular version. And it's like, okay, this can't be good for my body either. So a lot of different deep dives on that to come in future episodes. And there's always new developments. There's new research trials coming out about it. So we all need to keep adapting and learning as we go. I'm definitely not perfect, but I do my best. And I feel like I'm at a place now where I'm super disciplined with my celiac disease and I take it super seriously, but in a way where it doesn't give me anxiety. It feels super harmonious and manageable with my life. It's become second nature to me, and I've developed really strong frameworks of managing it effectively and feeling really great. Like this past year, I think I felt the best that I've ever felt in my entire life. And I think it's because I've been so intentional about managing my celiac disease and making it work for me. And I just want to be able to impart this knowledge to anyone with celiac who wants to listen, because I think everyone deserves to just feel happy and healthy and in control. And obviously, everyone's celiac disease journey is different. So what works for me might not work for you and vice versa. But I think it's still valuable to hear from people's experiences. And then also this podcast is just kind of a way to fuel a community of people that are gluten-free and have celiac disease. And we can all connect on my Instagram. Shout out at Celiac Diaries Pod. And just have a good time over there, just connecting and just everyone being able to realize that they're not alone in this journey. And I think that that's super valuable too. So that's really why I wanted to start this podcast, because I honestly wish I had a podcast like this to listen to as a resource or companion when I was first diagnosed, or even just a few years ago when I was trying to figure things out about it. And if I can be that resource for someone else to help you save time or just feel a little bit better and less alone in this journey, then that's really what I want to do with this podcast. So yeah, and I know, again, as I say in my disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, and I know there is a lot of misinformation about celiac disease out there. So I'm definitely going to be super intentional with what I'm sharing, doing research, but I do want everyone to keep in mind that I am not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I work in advertising and I'm a content creator. So please remember to see your doctor and consult medical professionals for medical advice. This podcast is not medical advice. It's just a community to share. So I will have that disclaimer at the beginning of every episode, but I just wanted to make a point to highlight that as well. You know, obviously, I really respect doctors. Both of my parents are doctors. Well, my dad is a doctor. My mom had a PhD in nursing, has one, and my brother is a doctor. So I really respect the medical field, but I think, you know, just the way that the system is set up, sometimes we only get so much time with our doctors or dietitians to really talk things through. And there's, you know, some things about celiac disease that are helpful to know and manage that doctors don't tell you. So you do sometimes need to turn to other resources. And there's a ton of books out there about celiac disease. I think they're great, and I can, you know, do a whole episode on that, or just do like an Instagram post on specific celiac books and link them for you guys if you're interested. But I'm such a podcast person, and I feel like a celiac focused podcast has been missing in this space, one that's fun and conversational, where you're gonna get your practical tips and, you know, wellness advice, but through a lifestyle wellness lens, not necessarily like so sciencey, although the books are important. So I'm excited to serve that space online. I think celiac disease can be fun. It doesn't just have to be a random dense book that you're kind of dreading reading. So that's another reason why I wanted to start this podcast. And yeah, I feel really strongly about this because I really struggled for years to figure out how to manage celiac disease and how to just feel better in my own body and understand what it really was. And there's still more for me to learn about it too, but just like thinking about my background, and like I said, like my brother's a doctor, my parents are doctors. I mean, my brother, recently became a doctor. Wasn't a doctor when I was 11, but you guys know what I mean. I just feel like if it was hard for me to figure it out, it has to be hard for other people too. That's another reason why I wanted to start this podcast and just share what I've learned, my experience, my tips, and create community for other people. Because also for the longest time, I didn't know a soul that had celiac disease. And over the past few years, I feel like I've been meeting more people. I still, can probably count them all on my hands, which is crazy because there are so many people that have celiac disease. And I'm meeting more and more people every day. And I know people continue to be diagnosed, but it really does help when you just have the camaraderie of knowing someone else that's going through the same thing. You can share products and just, talk about things. So we are all in this together. That's the full rundown of why I really wanted to start this podcast and why I'm so excited about it. I also really want to have guest episodes. So if you have anyone that you think would want to come on, that you can connect me with, let me know. I think like influencers that have celiac disease to share their diagnosis story. I was just at a brand event the other week and I connected with a farmer that had celiac disease, which would be cool. Like people from all walks of life to share their journey with celiac disease, because I have a very specific journey with it. I know there's people that are diagnosed as adults. So having them come on and share their story, I think would be really valuable. Obviously, I want to have on doctors and dietitians, certified experts that can really give us more insights. That's what's coming. I'm really excited for this new era with my content creation. For the longest time, I really was so hesitant to be known as the celiac girl on social media. I remember when I first started posting on TikTok in 2022, some of my first viral videos, like talking millions of views on TikTok, were gluten-free grocery hauls. And I remember being so annoyed that that's what went viral, because I was like, I don't want to be known as a gluten-free celiac girl. Like, I just want to be me. So I feel like I really was resistant to making gluten-free content or content tied to celiac disease, and was really trying to brand myself as just a lifestyle influencer. But the past couple of years, I feel like I've become just more passionate about wellness as a whole. And I know that the wellness space is so saturated online, and I want to be able to contribute to that. And I think my unique lens of having celiac disease in my journey can really be where I'm able to add value for people, because there's not a podcast like this out there yet. So I'm excited to be the start of the celiac disease podcasting space. Yeah, at the end of the day, I have celiac. It's a part of my lifestyle. There's so many people out there that have it too, and just because it's what I'm posting about doesn't mean that it's my whole life, but it can just be something that's a part of my experience that I share about online. And it is crazy. I mean, I mentioned I haven't known that many people with celiac disease throughout my life, but there are 3 million people in the US with celiac disease. I think it's 1% of the population, and more people will be diagnosed every day, probably. And I feel like based on everything that I've learned about celiac disease over the past, how many years has it been? Gosh, 15 years. If I can impart some of that knowledge with people that are just getting diagnosed, just relearning what it means to have celiac disease as an adult, or just want to have a community of other people with celiac disease, then I want to be able to be that person. So with that, here is a little preview of what we're going to be discussing on the podcast. And let me know if you have any episode requests as well. I am all ears. My DMs are open at Celiac Diaries Pod. I hope that's the handle. Guys, I just made the Instagram account, but everything will be linked in the show notes. So for my first few episodes, I want to just start out kind of general. I want to have an episode that's fully dedicated to my full celiac disease diagnosis story. And then I want to have a Gluten-Free 101 diet deep dive, sharing everything that I've learned about eating gluten-free for the past 15 years. Other fun episode ideas that I have are how I use ChatGPT to make living with celiac disease easier, the truth about gluten-free substitutes. I was kind of talking about this earlier. Are oats really gluten-free? Guys, I seriously could talk for 3 hours about oats. I have such a bone to pick with oats. Alcohol and celiac disease and anxiety, why they're connected, and how I've coped with it, how to eat at restaurants with celiac, cross-contamination. And then I also think it'd be so fun to answer listeners' questions and share y'all's stories. If you want to submit your own stories, I might have little fun polls to ask you on my Instagram, another reason to give it a follow. And I'll definitely have Q&As, and I can answer some of y'all's questions and touch base with you there. But always feel free to DM me and let me know what you think of all of those ideas. And if you have any other requests. Yeah, guys, I'm so excited for this podcast. I will see you all next week. I really appreciate you guys listening to my very first episode. This is so special and exciting for me. So I really thank you guys so much. If you made it all the way to the end, it means the world. If you did, please give my podcast a follow. It's available everywhere you listen to podcasts. I also have video if you haven't been watching the video this whole time. So check out the Celiac Diaries podcast channel on YouTube if you want to watch on video, and subscribe over there. I really appreciate the support, you guys. Be sure to share this episode with a gluten-free or celiac friend and leave a great 5-star review. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Celiac Diaries podcast. I hope you're leaving with a tip, a story, or just a little inspiration to live your best life with celiac. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the show, share it with a friend, or leave a review. I'll see you back here next Wednesday. And until then, stay well.